Hi again. My name is Nicole Sharp, and I am an advocate for domestic violence awareness. And I wrote a book about my experience with domestic violence as a child. It's called The End of November, Growing Up with Domestic Violence, and it can be found on Amazon. And it details things that I remember about growing up with domestic violence. And as I mentioned before, domestic violence was like another entity. It was real that I grew up with that affected my life in every aspect of the word. And so I just want to share chapters. So I've been reading chapter by chapter. This particular chapter, chapter 9 that we're up to, is the longest chapter. My chapters are pretty short for easy reading. They go straight to the point. But this one is just a couple of pages, and it's entitled Dr. Chase Nerve Pills. I had my first emotional breakdown when I was about 7 or 8. Every time I think about it, my heart races. I shudder and I shake as if I'm there again. The incident wasn't unlike any other incident I witnessed before, but I believe it was a culmination of all previous incidents of seeing my father abuse my mother that set me off. It was a weekday, and my mom and I were at my grandmother's house, spending some time with her. We laughed at the kitchen table as my grandmother's husband chimed in now and then, between being zoned out by the little television which sat on the counter in front of him all day long. We waited for my father to pick us up. This was before my mother bought her own car. The phone rang and we got our belongings together. We said our goodbyes and sped to my father's little gray Mustang, which he treasured. It was his first car. He didn't like to be kept waiting. He didn't open the door for my mom or me as a gentleman would. He just sat in his seat. As soon as we stepped in, he started yelling at my mom. I can't remember what he was upset about, but whatever it was, it didn't warrant him to start choking my mother in a headlock as he beat his knuckles into her forehead. I sat in the back, about 3 feet away, buckled into my seat. I couldn't close my eyes or do anything for that matter to pretend this wasn't happening. My mother kept screaming his name, begging for him to stop, but somehow this seemed to give him a boost of power and made him even angrier, because he then took my mom's head and bashed it against the window over and over again. Her face turned red, and she squeezed her eyes shut for every blow. His face had determination all over it, determination to knock the life right out of her. That was no longer my father. That was the face of a murderer. I couldn't unbuckle myself fast enough. I had to get away and save my mom. I pushed the back door open, leaving it swinging, and I ran up the stairs to my grandmother's house. My mom cried out for me to come back, but that wasn't happening. I rang the bell over and over and over again. My finger was in pain, but I couldn't stop ringing it. Even when my grandmother and my Aunt Abigail ran to the door, I kept ringing it and ringing it. My aunt pulled me into the foyer, kneeled down to my level and begged, "What happened? What happened?" I couldn't speak. I opened my mouth, but words couldn't come out. I desperately wanted the words to come out so someone could help my mom, but they just wouldn't come out. "Stop shaking, Nicole, and tell me what happened," my aunt said, peering over the walls of the porch. Auntie Abigail took her hands and held both my arms together to stop me from shaking. I didn't even realize I was shaking until she told me to stop. Now I couldn't speak and I couldn't stop shaking. "Where is your mommy?" my grandmother asked frantically. Then I found words, but they were chopped up words, trying to escape through chattering teeth. "Daddy needs to be beaten and then Auntie Abigail interjected when she saw how painful it was for me to speak, let alone recap the horrors I must have just seen. "And thrown into the garbage, right?" she said with a smile on her face that was meant to comfort me. And then I stuttered, "Yes." How did she know what I was feeling at the moment? Why didn't anyone go downstairs to help my mother? Why didn't anyone call the police? Was this all really normal? And was I the only one who was crazy? Excuse me. All of these questions bounced against each other in my head like atoms in a rogue molecule. I had a headache. I couldn't stop shaking, and my heart kept beating like a drum against my chest. Excuse me. The constant leaping of my heart made me feel faintish. My aunt led me into the house again, and there I stayed for a while until the shaking finally stopped. Then my grandmother came to me and told me that my mother and father wanted to see me. I was apprehensive, making tiny fearful steps back out onto the porch. I saw them sitting halfway down the steps together. "Come, Nicole," my mom patted the space on the step next to her. I moved cautiously like a cat in the wild. "Your daddy will not hurt mommy like that again, okay?" I looked at her face, and I could tell that she didn't even believe her own words. She just wanted me to believe. I was too afraid to look at him. Then I heard his voice. "I love your mommy very much. I'm sorry I hurt her." Somehow his words sounded sincere. I loved my father very much, but I didn't love the way he treated my mother. How I felt for him brought me much guilt. When he said that he loved her very much, I believe he believed that you don't pummel the one that you love. For the moment, I felt at ease. I needed to feel ease. I needed a release. In the back of my mind, I knew this wasn't going to be the last round, but I didn't want to think about that, so I didn't. From this night on, every time my father would beat my mother up, my body would shake beyond control. Even for a long time after everything settled, my body would take its time to settle again. Trembling would become a regular occurrence for me. When I would pick up my pencil to write at school, I would curiously watch my hand vibrate like the pin in a lie detector test. I have broken many pencil points, and many vinyl records have been scratched in my attempts to place the needle down precisely at its edge. I always started the song way past the beginning. I would try over and over again to place the needle down perfectly until I finally got it right. Wine glasses would break in my hands as I tried to wash them. My mother saw the need to wash the glassware herself. She also saw the need to have me treated for my shaking fit somehow. One day, she called me into our kitchen when I was about 8 years old and presented me with 2 brown over-the-counter pills. They looked like candies, and they even tasted like candy on the surface. My mom explained to me that they were for my nerves and that they would help to stop me from shaking. I would chew 2 Dr. Chase nerve pills every morning before breakfast for a stretch of several months at the beginning, and then for the next couple of years, only when I had really uncontrollable episodes. My mother would take these pills as well. The whole Dr. Chase nerve food collection of remedies were first put on the market in the late 1800s and claimed to conquer ailments such as tired feelings, sleeplessness, nervous indigestion, nervous headache, dizziness, and fainting, etc. I don't think they ever worked because I still remember shaking and having a difficult time sleeping at night. Recently, I decided to investigate these nerve pills and was surprised to find out that the original blend contained strychnine and arsenic. Both are very toxic poisons used as pesticides, particularly for killing small vertebrae such as birds and rodents. Arsenic is also used as an insecticide and herbicide. Why would poisons be an ingredient in a remedy that is supposed to cure a variety of human ailments? Apparently, strychnine and arsenic, in very small doses, were used as laxatives in the past until the Food and Drug and Cosmetic Acts of 1938 outlawed them. but Dr. Chase nerve pills are still sold in the Caribbean community and other ethnic populations in the United States and abroad. So at least it was when I wrote this book in 2007. I don't know about today in 2025. It's something to look into. I'm not sure if strychnine and arsenic are still present in Dr. Chase nerve pills today, but there is something to be said about a brand that is only sold in small bodegas as opposed to a pharmacy and on peculiar websites on the internet. Of strychnine, the CDC notes, strychnine prevents the proper operation of the chemical that controls nerve signals to the muscles. The chemical controlling nerve signals works like the body's off switch for muscles. When this off switch does not work correctly, muscles throughout the body have severe painful spasms. Even though the person's consciousness or thinking are not affected at first, except that the person is very excitable and in pain, eventually the muscles tire and the person can't breathe. I don't know if this ingredient was in my daily doses of Dr. Chase nerve pills, but if it was, it would explain my constant muscle aches starting at age 8, around that age. I suffer throughout the day, but mostly at night, with pain radiating through my arms and legs. Sometimes the pain would attack both my arms alone, or both legs, or one leg and one arm. I used to tie the limb that was hurting with a rubber band or a long, thick sock before I went to bed at night. This would lessen the pain, but of course I know now that I was slowing down blood circulation to those limbs. When my mom noticed what I was doing one evening, she yelled at me to stop. I did for that night, but the pain was too unbearable, so of course I didn't listen. Nevertheless, my mother took me to the doctor. I don't know if he was a specialist or not, but after several blood tests, I remember him saying that the pain was all in my head. I guess because he didn't have a painometer, I had to be making it all up. I must hand it to my mother. When I had a problem, she would always seek a second opinion. For example, 2 years later at age 10, I started to experience the larky, or my first breast bud in my left breast. The soreness was so intense that my mom took me to the doctor. Right after examining me physically, his diagnosis was she has a tumor in her left breast. We will have to operate right away and give her a mastectomy before the cancer spreads. And mind you, I was 10 years old. My mom rushed home and called everyone she knew frantically. Next thing I knew, I was seeing another doctor for a second opinion. After some tests, he came back and said with a smile on his face, "This is not a tumor. Your daughter's breast is simply beginning to grow. The first sign of puberty. It is normal for one breast to grow before the other. The soreness is normal too, but don't worry, it is only temporary." "Who is the doctor that gave you the cancer diagnosis?" he asked. So now, with regard to my muscle pain, my mother took me to another doctor. This doctor's diagnosis was rheumatoid arthritis. My mother was stunned because no one in the family had rheumatoid arthritis, and more importantly, she thought I was too young to be stricken with such a disease. The doctor told her that I must have been born with it. She wasn't satisfied with that diagnosis either, so we went to another doctor for a third opinion. I love my mom. The third doctor's diagnosis was stress. Extreme stress can cause physical pain with no known physical cause. I believe my mom was satisfied with that diagnosis because I don't remember receiving any treatment for rheumatoid arthritis, and I don't remember any talk of me having rheumatoid arthritis after that. I just remember when the doctor proclaimed it, and more importantly, we didn't go for a fourth opinion. Stress came out on top as the winner. I can understand why stress is called the silent killer. There is no instrument to measure levels of stress, but it is the underlying cause of most ailments, from heart disease to asthma. I was diagnosed with asthma as an adult, but I believe I had it since childhood. It just got worse with time. My asthma is brought on by an allergic reaction to airborne allergens given off by trees, dust, and some animals such as dogs, cats, and chinchillas. I haven't ever been around a chinchilla before. But anyway, as a treatment, my mom would give me baths in Epsom salts or oatmeal. Before bed, she would rub my body with Florida water or alcalata. It's this green liquid. Florida water was like a clear liquid. These products are like liquid versions of Vicks, mentholated liquids. They gave me temporary relief, and temporary relief was always better than none at all. Dr. Chase nerve pills, Epsom salts, chamomile, Florida water, alcalata, plasters for the sore, oatmeal baths. Why trim a weed and leave the root? My mom knew very well the reason why I trembled and the reason why my muscles hurt. She knew that the best remedy for me would be to remove me from our dysfunctional, abusive household, away from my father. As a mother, I can now understand the internal turmoil she must have been putting herself through. I say putting herself through because it wasn't unnecessary. I can understand the fear she had of my father. She probably blamed herself for being his victim time and time again. And I'm quite sure she blamed herself for the emotional and physical pain that I was experiencing. What loving parent would give birth to their first child and be content with them witnessing the abuse I did? So she saw how my body reacted. She saw how I reacted psychologically, physically. She saw how it affected me so negatively. And I know she blamed herself for that. My mom felt as if she was in a prison, being held against her will. My father reveled in the knowledge that she was his slave, caged by his abusive words, his punches, caged by his slaps and his kicks on occasion. The fact that this prison was without physical bars did not matter. The bars were psychological, brought on by my father's brainwashing scheme to make my mom feel like a piece of nothing. People never understand why a woman or man victimized by domestic abuse has such a hard time leaving. Fear is the main reason. Fear is crippling. Fear is the prison. This is why I have learned to be fearless, because I believe in freedom. And that's the end of chapter 9. It has so much to talk about, but I've read so much. I don't want to hold you back for too long, but I will say this. I realized that my father was a narcissist. And a lot of the things that I explain, I describe here, I realize are things that narcissists do. They seem to get some type of high when they're putting pain on someone else, and when they realize that their abusive tactics are working on weakening the person that they're victimizing, right? So my father used to get this high when he used to beat my mother. I saw it on his face. And for him to believe that he loved my mother showed his dysfunction. Even after he killed my mom years later, and I'll go into that later on in the book, he told me and my siblings, I loved your mom. And he truly believed that. And then when he talked about her, he cried. And then he would say, I'm sorry for what happened to your mom. So he separated himself from being the actual murderer of my mom, his wife. It's a sickness, but it's not an excuse. I want to talk more about narcissistic disorder later, but just keep aware. I would say look up narcissistic, I forgot the whole disorder's name, but just look up narcissist and personality traits that narcissists have, and let those be red flags for you when it comes to the people in your life. And it's any type of relationship. It could be a boss, it could be an intimate partner, it could be a sibling, family member, anyone. And then just learn to put up boundaries. But thank you all for listening to chapter 9, and we'll go to chapter 10 next time, which is entitled escape. Thank you so much for listening.